This morning I want us to reflect on the gospel assigned for today in our Revised Common Lectionary from the gospel according to Mark. And it was from verse 1 to 6. I want you to pay attention to the movements in this part of the gospel that was read. He left that place and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. On the Sabbath day, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astounded, and they said, "Where did this man get all this? What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What deeds of power are being done in his hand, by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. And Jesus said to him, "Prophets are not without honor except in their own hometown, and among their own kin, and in their own house." And he could do no deed of power there except that he laid hands on a few sick people and cured them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Then he went about among the other villages. Let us pray. Gracious God and Heavenly Father, speak. Open your word to us so that our lives may be informed and directed by it. May your word be a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Verse 2. Many who heard Jesus were astounded, were amazed. Many who heard Jesus were amazed. They were amazed at his wisdom, and they were amazed at the deeds of power. It's there on the screen. So let's see, look at where it starts. Jesus goes into this village, his hometown, and they were amazed, astounded, when they heard his wisdom and saw the deeds of power he was doing. Are we clear with that part? We're all on the same page. But then when we jump down to verse 5 into verse 6, verse 5 into 6 says, "And he could do no deed of power there, except, just lay down on a few sick people and cure them. And he was," what? "Amazed at their unbelief." So we moved from verse 2, where many were amazed at Jesus' wisdom and the deeds of power that he was doing. We move from that when he entered his village to verse 5 and 6, which says he could do no deed of power. And they put some, except that. And Jesus was now amazed at their unbelief. How did we move from great wisdom, great power, causing amazement, to the amazement, on the other hand, was now amazed at their unbelief, because now there was no longer great power demonstrated? How did we get there? What happened? The text tells us. Verse 6, the last part of verse 6 says what? They took offense at him. They took offense at him. So, walk with me. Many were amazed. They took offense at him. That's what the text have, these things. And he could do no deed of power. So you have verse 2, many amazed. Verse 6b, they took offense. And then verse 5, sorry, not 6b, 3b. 3b, they took offense. And then verse 5, no deed of power could be done. So why did they take offense? Why did they take offense? The text tells us they took offense. Why? Because they recognized him. They recognized him both as the hometown boy and as a carpenter. So, walk with me. They had no fault, they had no issue with his wisdom. Am I correct? They had no concern about his deeds of power. Am I correct? It is that he was the carpenter whose family they knew from the village. That was the issue. And I might add, it wasn't because that there was anything untoward about his family. It wasn't because that family, we know them, is a bunch of thieves. Them people there is bare confusion in the village. Are you with me? He was a carpenter. And we knew people in front of the village, which of itself says something else. As a result of this, they missed out receiving divine wisdom and missed great deed of power that could have been done by God. So that Jesus could have been doing an amazing and great work among them. But that did not happen because guess what? They took offense at him. So just to clarify before we proceed, who took offense at Jesus? I wonder. Who took offense at Jesus? It just says they. There are two possibilities. There are two possibilities. They're not in terms of the actual text. There are two possible views. That it is the same persons who were amazed that now took offense at him. Are you with me? And among whom he could do no deed of power. So the many in verse 2 that were amazed, those persons took offense, and therefore he could do no deed of power. There's another possibility. There's another possibility. Another view is that you have some different dynamics going on. So you had some who were amazed, and then another set who took offense. But the collective outcome is their unbelief and no deed of power. Are you with me? So it is either the same people who changed when they realized, but wait, we know the man. Or these people were influenced by another group of people who say, but you all ain't know the man. And as a result, in his hometown, he could do no deed of power. And he was amazed at their unbelief. People have often wondered about this text relative to ministers and preachers working in their own home village. I remember when I first came, I highlighted that this doesn't directly relate to my coming because it's talking about Jesus' home village, hometown, and I wasn't effectively assigned in my home village. But there are other ways in which people understand that part of it, but that's not what I want to focus on today. So, in one sense, I want you to see whether it is the same persons right through or two different groups of persons. Think about this. Jesus is doing some amazing work. They're seeing things and hearing a wisdom that they've not seen before. Am I correct? They are amazed because whatever this man was doing was something phenomenal. The knowledge, the wisdom demonstrated was nothing like they'd ever heard or seen before. Wow! And then you move from that to their unbelief. And he could do no deed of power. Whether it's the same people who just were amazed and all of a sudden realize, but wait, that's not the carpenter, me know people and them, they're from the village. And then all of a sudden, they shifted. You realize what's going on here? In one moment, they are amazed at Jesus. And the very next moment, they're known for their unbelief. In one moment, they are amazed at his wisdom and his power. The next moment, he could do no deed of power. One moment, they are amazed at things they were hearing from this man that they'd never heard before. The next moment, they want nothing to do with it. And the only issue, Lord help us, is he's a carpenter. And we know his family. This can't be serious. No, man. Y'all really get this thing? The only problem they had with Jesus was that they knew him to be a carpenter. And they knew him as one of we boys from the village. Oh gosh. So you mean the wisdom, the power, and it's just because he buy a carpenter? You know what that made me consider? That made me consider, that made me consider that they were what you will call fickle. F-I-C-K-L-E. I know the man sometimes could muzzle the words. They were what you will call fickle. One dictionary, Cambridge English Dictionary, says fickle is likely to change your opinion or your feelings suddenly and without good reason. Tell me, do you think that's appropriate then? Do you believe that these people changed their opinion and feelings about Jesus suddenly and without good reason? You think that fits? Because the way the text is written, we don't know if there are other dynamics going on, but based on what is here, these people seem very fickle. One moment, they are amazed at Jesus, they are marveling at his power, and without any good reason, they suddenly change. Just because they recognize, I know the man, the easy carpenter, and I know his family. Without good reason. Because why did they change? Because he's a carpenter. Because they knew his family. You can't be serious. That is what is going to cause you to change after what you had already seen. Get me? It's not as if Jesus came and they hadn't seen anything yet. They had already seen deeds of power. They had already heard his wisdom. So it had nothing to do with what he actually did or didn't do. Am I correct? It didn't even have anything to do with his family and what the family did or didn't do. It wasn't because they questioned his integrity. It wasn't because they discovered that his deeds of power were a gimmick. It wasn't because they thought he was a fraud, a pretender, a hypocrite. It wasn't because they thought that this was somebody who was trying to deceive them and a false prophet or a schemer. It wasn't because they had any moral, ethical, or spiritual objections. It was only because they knew him to be a carpenter and knew his family from the village. Fickle. Fickle. You know, people can change their view of you for no good reason. Not because you did something wrong or didn't do something right, but for the most insignificant reasons, or sometimes no reason at all. Fickle. People could one day celebrate your goodness and faithfulness in the Lord, and the next day won't have nothing to do with you. Are you with me? For no good reason. Fickle. What this means is that what I believe this means is that we have to appreciate that a real part of our experience as human beings is where sometimes people will one day be around you and they're hot, and the next day they're cold for no good reason. So it's important to note, because sometimes when you hear people despise you, it's not because you did something wrong. The problem is not a problem that you have. It really sometimes is a problem with them because they are fickle. You know, sometimes you take on the thing, wonder why some people don't like you no more. Hello, are you with me? Why they vex with you? Why they have nothing to do with you? And you're thinking, what have I done wrong? And sometimes it ain't because you did anything wrong. Sometimes it's because some people can be fickle. Because guess what? Fickle people have misguided values. Fickle people have misguided values. Fickle people have misguided values. What did they consider to be the important thing in Jesus' life? What did they consider to be the important thing in Jesus' life? His profession, his work as a carpenter, and his family circumstance. That's what they considered to be the most important thing in Jesus' life. Am I with you? Are you with me? Not his integrity, not his spirituality, but his socio-economic status. That's what they considered important. They value Jesus not for his character, but because of the work he did and the family they knew. You see, fickle people value social location more than integrity, spirituality, and character. Let me say that again. Fickle people, because they have misguided values, they value your social location, social status, more than they value your integrity, your spirituality, your character. They value you more for what job you have, what car you drive, what degrees you possess, more than who you really are, your attitude, your character, your faith. In fact, they don't care about those things, because those things don't matter as much to them. So fickle people get more caught up by the brand of clothes you wear, the brand of bag you carry, by the brand of shoes on your feet, by the place you work and the position you have. And they have no interest in if you lie, thief, worthless, and dishonest. Fickle people, not interested in knowing you. They're more interested in these things. And we don't realize how much of our society is fickle. So, all we want to know is if what family name you get. Hello? And if you get certain family names, we don't know if you are one of the thief in the family. Just the fact that you get a name, that's all that matters. And you watch it. Sometimes we don't realize how fickle we are. The minute we get certain jobs, we get fresh. Because all of a sudden, that job makes us think we are somebody. Hello? And others make us think that just by getting that job, we are somebody. Fickle. Hello? And that's why sometimes people work so hard, so quickly to get fancy car. Because they know that when people see them in that ride. That's why some people spend so much time on dressing and wearing suits and clothes they can't afford. Because they know that a lot of the people around them, that's what they value. Come on, we know it. We don't take time to figure out who a person is very often, because we don't decide who they are by what they have or don't have, and where they work or don't work. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. I've always been amazed by, even things like the van culture. A van man and a conductor, none of two of them own the vehicle. But just the fact that they're on it is amazing, the ranks they get. So, wow, girls, women, all you name it. Say, what? It's not theirs, Say, wow. But we attach so much value to those things that we don't even realize how fickle we are. I remember, and I told you all this several times when I was just out of school. And I was driving, I went to town, my father's Jeep with the banana on it. And the other guy working for Daddy, I told you all, most of you should know this. I was in the passenger side, And I passed some girls on the street, and I waved to them. So they saw this fellow in this banana Jeep waving to them, and they, who you wave to? When we were finished offloading, heading out of town, I was now driving, saw the same group of girls, and I toot and waved, and they gave me a nice, pleasant wave back. Progress, progress. And that's all because I moved from passenger side to driver side. Hello? So their opinion of me changed for no good reason. That's not the end of the story. So my mother had this Hyundai, and you know, it was, we put on a little spoiler at the back and it looked a little nice. And because I knew the girls, I recognized them from the school that they were from. So on another occasion I was driving, and you know those days, Brother Sean I'm sure would remember some of that. And those are the days when even you're driving and you lean back the car seat, that you're stretching to reach the steering. You know? Yeah. And so I passed the group of ladies, the young ladies, and I toot. And when I toot and the ladies saw me, whoa! Hey, we saw the excitement. I said, whoa! Progress! So I moved from passenger side of the Jeep to driver side of the Jeep to driving this nice looking car. And for no good reason, because they don't know if it's my car, if I thief it, if I borrow it. They have no idea anything about me. So for no good reason, their opinion changed. And we don't realize how much of that we live out. It may sound ridiculous with these young ladies, but we don't realize how much we value people, not for who they are. And sometimes even in churches we make those mistakes, simply because somebody has a certain social position. Has nothing to do with who they are. Fickle people have misguided values. And Jesus would perhaps put it in this way, reflected back in Ecclesiastes. Fickle people value the temporary things more than the eternal things. That's why Jesus called a man, when he told the parable, a rich fool. If you remember how that parable went? Because that man was so invested in building bigger barns and all this kind of stuff. And then Jesus said, you fool, when I take your life, what's going to happen to all of that? Because you spend all your life in this. And that's why sometimes even in our country we have to be careful. St. Vincent, we have a good housing stock that we're proud of, but we also have to be so careful, because some of it is a reflection of being fickle. Because when you tell me you're going to invest the next 40 years of your life paying a mortgage for a house that you, your family, and your family could live in and still get space, you ask yourself, so what's the reason for building a house with rooms you'll never occupy? Not even for when visitors come, because even when them come and they occupy it, you still get space. And much of your productive years is bound up trying to pay back a loan. This is my dream house. Hello? Book of Ecclesiastes is interesting because it raises questions about the meaningfulness of life. And the writer basically says, look, we spend a lot of our time dealing with all this stuff, running behind pleasure and money. And the writer says, I've discovered all of this is, he says, meaningless. Vanity of vanities. He discovers that this reflects a level of being fickle because these are not the most important things to determine our choices in life and what we do. Fickle people, their feelings change very easily. So fickle people have misguided values, and fickle people change their feelings very easily. Look at how in one moment they were amazed at Jesus. And simply by recognizing who he was, where he was from, and what he did, they took offense at him. It's amazing, you know. In one moment they were amazed at Jesus. And in the next moment, all the way, but wait, there's not a carpenter. Then all of a sudden, they're taking offense at him. Wow. There are people who would one day celebrate you, and for no good reason, in a twinkling of an eye, they'll despise you. Fickle. Are you with me? Their feelings about you change, not because of something you have done or because of something that you have said, but something they think or they hear and have no real basis of. So I saw Diane today, and Diane and me good. And then by the time I go home, I hear, but you know Diane thief. Tomorrow, I won't have nothing to do with Diane. I have no idea where it come from, if it's true. And all of a sudden, I don't want to have anything to do with Diane. Not that I'm going to say tomorrow, Diane, man, I know you to be an honest man, etc. Somebody say you're a thief. Diane say, yes, a thief, man, I'm disappointed in you, and so forth. No! We are none for do with Diane. I say, wow! What do you call that? Fickle. People change their feelings very easily. You see, because fickle people don't control their emotions well, their emotions control them. So rather than these people taking time out to figure out, is there sufficient and valid reason for us to take offense at Jesus? No! All they did was the minute they hear, we know the man. We want nothing to do with him. He can't come here and tell me anything. So wow. One moment, they're amazed. And in the jiffy, their feelings change. Wow. That's why one of the things that is amazing is that people tell you there's a thin line between love and hate. Because it's an amazing thing to see how quickly we could switch on somebody. And I could tell you, I remember years ago when I realized how fickle feelings can be and how we can be fickle when we just allow our feelings to guide us. I wasn't married at the time, and I was in Guyana, and I used to sit down at the when I was at a place called Bedford, I used to sit down outside every now and when I come home, take a little breather. And it was on the main street, one of the main streets in Guyana, Camp Street. And as I sat on the bench that we had at the front, I would see people pass, I would see some young ladies pass as well, and I remember seeing this young lady pass, several times afternoon or lunch or whatever, and I said, wow, yeah, but she looked like a nice girl. I couldn't wait to get to meet her. And as she passed, and I would greet her, and she would smile and respond, and I was, yes, this is progress. And, I saw her pass with a couple of people and, see her laughing and talking, so I concluded she has a good sense of humor. Another time I saw her pass, and because I love sports, I said, she looks like she's very athletic and she loves sports. You know, and I'm looking at all the possible things, and you know, yeah boy, this look like somebody I like, and you know, as young fellas, you know, you're dreaming of the time when you get to meet her and what you will say or what you don't say. So one day I went to, I think it was an income tax place, and when I went in the place, I was sitting there waiting, and then I heard this very, as old people say, this very, not old people, young people say, this very ghetto kind of song. Man, when me hear this song, when I looked around and I saw who it was, it's a joke, all the dream them done. Whoa! And I'm telling you, that made me realize how fickle feelings can be. Are you with me? What, yesterday I was dreaming about meeting this girl, and you know, she might very well be my happily ever after. Today, if I dream, it might be a nightmare. So what? Fickle people allow their feelings to determine how they relate to people. Because guess what? I've always said, you know, I know some of the older folks, and there's some value to it. They'll tell you, my spirit not tech and my spirit tech. But how many times, come on, you know what I'm talking about. How many times haven't you seen somebody, you never met them, you don't know nothing but them, but your feeling tell you, boy, no, I have nothing to do them people. He out of place, she fresh. Nothing yet. You have a feeling. How many of us, when we finally met the person, we realize our feeling was wrong? That's why you don't go by just how you feel. We are supposed to control as best as is reasonable possible. Our feelings are not like our feelings control us. That's why, for example, a simple principle in the Bible is to forgive. And if your feelings were to determine how you respond to somebody, you're never going to forgive them. But in spite of how you feel, hurt, betrayed, angry, disappointed, vexed, you decide you're not going to be determined and defined by your feeling. Fickle people have misguided values. Fickle people, feelings change easily. They are controlled by their feelings rather than their feelings being controlled by them. Fickle people lack depth. Fickle people lack depth. They're very superficial, surface. They don't get to the meat of the matter. They didn't try to know anything about Jesus, did they? Are you with me? They didn't try to find out more about Jesus. No. All it took was that they recognized this carpenter and the Nui family. Find out a little more about the man. Ask a few questions. Get to try and figure out if this is in fact a man with credibility, integrity. Oh gosh, man, dig a little deeper. Paul talks about a kind of Christian that will be similar to this idea of surface, superficial, fickle. He says in Timothy, we have to be careful because one of the problems with Christianity is that too many people will be fickle Christians. Hear how Paul puts it. He says they'll have a form of godliness, but no substance with it. That's what Paul is effectively saying, that you're going to have a problem where there's going to be a fickleness about Christianity, that all people are interested in is the superficial, the surface. They're not too interested in going too deep. That's one of the problems the church has had more and more. People are okay, they will show up on Sunday, And that's good enough. They're not interested in getting too deep. I remember when somebody told me some years ago when they started going Bible study, friends want to know what's wrong with them, because it's like, what you going all in that Bible thing there for? Sunday, sit down and listen to sermon is good enough. You don't want to get deeper. How many of us are more than content with the little WhatsApp devotional reflection or two-liner? We don't want to spend no time wrestling with the word. That's too deep. The truth is, I know most people will be glad if for sermon on Sunday morning I do a 10-minute thing that says nothing, in fact. But to try to go in the word, wrestle with the word. No, man. That's not what matters. We want to make sure we could tick the box. There's a form of godliness, Paul calls it. A surface superficiality. Not willing to find out more, get more, no more. How many of us are seriously pursuing knowing Jesus more, getting deeper, stronger in our relationship with God? The vast majority of church people in the world are satisfied with a fickle Christianity, just enough to say I'm a Christian. You check it. Church after church after church. And it's not just here. Some people tell you in some of these mega churches, you hear tens of thousands of people on a Sunday. And go to Bible study during the week. In these same, even the mega churches, they can't have tens of thousands. Some of them can't get 1,000 at a Bible study. Are we not interested in getting deeper? We're not interested in wrestling with the word and knowing God more and figuring out how we must apply it to our lives. Many of us, our Bible begging for a little read. And even if it's done with phone, it's the same thing. Because we're not interested in knowing more, in getting deeper. We prefer to take things on the surface. Are you with me? Fickle Christians are people who are more interested in giving people a good impression. That's why did Jesus call the Jews whitewashed tombs? He was saying, if you go beyond the surface, what you get is dead. He says, on the surface, it looks nice. But beneath the surface, there is no real substance. And that has been one of the real crises in the Christian community. People who are not getting deeper in the word. So, these fickle people who lack depth are easily swayed, misled, misguided. Paul says in Ephesians 4 that we are supposed to be building up, growing, maturing to the full stature of Christ. That the church is supposed to be a place where people are getting deeper, growing more. They're supposed to be developing in their relationship with Christ. You remember in Corinthians 1 Corinthians 3, Paul got upset with them. You know why? Paul says, I'm disappointed. Because since I left you till now, I can't give you solid food. You're still on milk. You ain't growing. You ain't getting deeper. You got people in the church for years. And they still want to drink milk. They're not anymore grounded in their relationship with God. They haven't truly changed their habits and they're not developing, growing. Whoa. So, it's the same thing in our society. we are not interested in getting to know each other. We make all our conclusions simply based on what we hear and the things we see. And that's why things like social media thrives. People are not interested in knowing you. And they could go on social media and they could say John is, Paul is, and they never met you. And they're not interested in meeting you. They're not interested in knowing who John or Paul is. We're not interested in going deeper. Because sadly, too many people have become fickle. Fickle, therefore, when you consider these three things, that fickle people have misguided values, fickle people are easily, feelings change easily. Fickle people lack depth. What it means, therefore, is that fickle people are not grounded in the word, and therefore they're more susceptible to their feelings and misguided influence. You know, if we take time to get deeper in dealing with issues, reflecting on things, we make much better decisions in life. You know that, right? If we take time to try and understand things a little more, reflect on life and living a little more, we make better decisions in life. Some of you would know recently, in the last week, the Methodist Church in England made a decision that they were now going to recognize same-sex marriages and cohabitation, meaning what we call live home, common law. And so they were now going to give official sanction and recognition to those things. That's the Methodist Church in England. That ain't got no jurisdiction over us in the Caribbean. So don't assume because the name Methodist is we. It's totally different kettle of fish. In fact, I don't even know if that is Methodist. It is historically Methodist. But biblically and based on our principles over the years, I am no way convinced that that is Methodist. But it's the church that historically, Methodism, John Wesley was a Methodist and so forth. Well, he was an Anglican Methodist. So they have made that decision. And I've wondered, what could lead church leaders to make that kind of a decision? And I want to suggest that today we have identified one of the factors that a lot of times people can be very fickle. Oh, don't get tricked. These people who we're talking about in the Bible here, don't assume that they're some uneducated fools. You see, that's again our assumption, because we're thinking the only reason them would change on Jesus so is because there's some perhaps very poor, uneducated people. That kind of thinking of itself is fickle. Because being fickle has nothing to do with your academic qualifications. Sometimes some people who are very well educated are some of the most fickle people you'd ever meet. So let me tell you why I think one of the factors for such a foolish decision is fickle. Because one of the premises for making those decisions is ultimately based on feelings. Come on, are you with me here? Now you listen to the LGBTQIA plus narrative. Some people now call it the alphabet gender narrative. And a fundamental principle that informs gender identity is feeling. And this is not some speculative thing. Some of you will know, at one time the American Psychology Association said sex is assigned at birth, which means we impose a sex on a person. What stupidness is that? Or you impose a sex on somebody. They're either boy or girl. And yes, there are some cases where they have two genitals and all kind of stuff. There's some science in all of that discussion. But basically, you're either boy or girl. You have obvious genitals to prove. So how is it that we assign sex? And there's some intelligent people who say that, you know. And hear what they go on to say. American Psychology Association. So while sex is assigned, gender identity is your internal sense of who you are. What I'm telling you is where you feel you be. So if I feel I'm a woman, I'm a woman. That's my true identity. Because that's how and guess what? You can't tell me who I am because you can't tell me how I feel. And since I was a child, from the time I knew myself, I always felt that I wasn't in the right body. I always felt attracted to. I always felt that I was supposed to be something else. You listen to the language. And the thing is so preposterous. On the gender narrative, you have things like gender non-conforming. That's a legitimately labeled gender identity. You have persons who they say, yes, you're either one gender, two gender, you're no genders, or you're all genders. There are some people who identify, which means they feel they are gender fluid. Gender fluid mean if you're 100 genders, they're not limited to any one. You tell me sensible people believe them thing they know. So a man could go into a female bathroom feeling, and it sounds ridiculous, but it is the reality. Because you know, some of you have followed this, they have had the bathroom debates that we shouldn't bother to have man bathroom and woman bathroom. So a man could go in a woman's bathroom for now, and because he identifies, which means he feels he's a woman, he must be allowed to go to the woman's bathroom. And Lord, imagine what happens while he's in the woman's bathroom, based on his fluidity. Now, of course, not all are gender fluid, but I'm saying it's part of the narrative. So while he's in the woman's bathroom, he no longer feels like a woman, he now feels like a man. Watching the women change and fix themselves now, fix up themselves and so forth. Fickle. Part of the reason I believe fickle is appropriate, and don't get me wrong, it's not that these people's feelings are not legitimate, that they don't genuinely feel these things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting the feeling is pretensive and unreal. These are real feelings people have. But the point I'm raising is not just regarding your gender, but anything in life. If you are simply going to function primarily based on how you feel, that is being fickle. And then part of it is because fickle means we lack depth. We're very superficial. And let me tell you one of the things I found fascinating with this gender narrative and this gay and other rights narrative, because I've had opportunity to engage in a lot of these discussions. Whenever you're having these discussions, and so I want you to be on the alert, anytime you try to get deeper by saying, let's look further down the line, not just how you feel now and what you think now, let's look at the implications, consequences, meaning down the line. They make you feel foolish for trying to think deeper and look further. No, that's not what we want now. All we want now is our right to. And we get caught by it. Because we just want, we want our rights. And then you take the time to ask, okay, so you tell me which right you now don't have that every other human being has. And that's when marriage comes into the equation. But that's not true. To say you don't have the right to marry is a lie. Because you do have the right to marry. You have the right to marry somebody of the opposite sex. Are you with me? But you choose you want to marry somebody of the same sex. So that's the right you're saying you don't have. But you have the right to marry. Are you understanding my point? It's just, anyway. Thinking deeper. Let me make this last point on this. So I heard a minister reflecting on the situation in England. He said, one of the good things about it is they have put protections in place for those of us who do not believe in homosexual marriage. So we will not be compelled to do gay marriages. And we should put an applause. No, you don't clap, please. But the point, I think, the way I heard him is like, whoa, this is an accomplishment. And guess what? Hear it. Because what it really means is we're respecting you, and all we want is for you to respect us. So if you don't want to marry gay people, that's okay. Those who want to marry gay people, they can marry gay people. And guess what? Can't we all get along? Great! If you take things on the surface. Let's look a little deeper. How did we get here in the first place? We got here because of things like discrimination. Treating, quote unquote, one person different from the other. And that narrative says, we as gay people should not be treated differently. Come on, anybody hear me? So guess what? Just take it on the surface. In order to pass this legislation, guess what they said? For now, it's okay to treat us differently. Hello? Because isn't that effectively what they're saying? They're saying, so even for you to be able to marry a gay person, you have to get a special license. So you have a license to marry heterosexual, and you have a license to marry gay. What are they doing? Treating gay people differently. How long you think that will last? Because effectively, if you are saying that people have to have a different license for marry gay people, so you're saying gay people are not people? Hello? So sooner or later, this thing that you celebrate, oh wow, it's respecting the boundaries. And then you discover that the boundaries cannot be sustained because the very principle of establishing this in the first place will undermine it. That's why I say we always need to think deeper and look deeper at issues. Hello, are you with me? Because when we give ourselves to being fickle, we can be even more manipulated by the enemy. Let me end here. Two things quickly. One is how do we respond to fickle people? Jesus, the passage tells us, Jesus just continued working for the Lord, basically. In Luke chapter 9, when some people in a village rejected Jesus and the disciples say, let me bring down fire on them and thing, Jesus, they said, his face was fixed towards Jerusalem, meaning he refused to be distracted. He kept focused on God's call in his life. So how do you deal with fickle people? Don't let them get to you to the point that they distract you and they cause you to lose focus and go off track. Stay focused on what God is calling you to. Are you with me? And what do you do if you're a fickle? If you realize that you're fickle? Because again, we don't like the words, but it's what it means, evaluating ourselves and asking questions about ourselves. In the text, when you consider that the fickle people, Jesus says, I was amazed at their unbelief, then you realize one of the ways to navigate being fickle, if you realize you're fickle, is to believe in Jesus Christ effectively. In other words, John says it interestingly, when the disciples were troubled, Jesus says, trust me, take me at my word, depend on what I say, live by what I say. Which really goes back to the part that they took offense at him. So the way in which we respond if we recognize that we're fickle is to truly nurture our relationship with Jesus Christ. Two powerful and critical things. One is develop, learn to trust Jesus. Live your life trusting in Jesus and his word. Two, build your relationship with Christ, because the closer you get to God, the more depth and purpose and meaning there is in your life. We don't have to live our lives like this. We could do better. That's why Jesus himself said, I have come that you may have life. And not just something fickle and shallow, but to have it more abundantly. And that was his way of saying, come to me, give your life to me, surrender to me, and I will give your life purpose, meaning, depth, value. I will guide you, direct you, help you to make sound and sober choices. I will show you the way to live. I will give you wisdom, discernment, and I will help you to know what is truth. Because guess what? I am the way, the truth, and the life. Amen. Amen.